I want to start with something that might make you a little uncomfortable. Right now, there's something you desperately want to achieve. A dream that lights you up when you think about it. A vision of who you could become that makes your heart race with possibility. But there's also something else. A collection of reasons why that dream isn't possible right now. Why it's not the right time. Why you don't have what it takes. Why the circumstances aren't perfect. These aren't just casual thoughts. They're carefully constructed, well-rehearsed explanations that you've polished to perfection. Here's what I've discovered after studying human behavior. For most people, their excuses have become more precious to them than their dreams. They've invested more energy in perfecting their reasons for why something can't happen than in creating the conditions for it to happen. You know, I've always taught that when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. But most people are looking at their excuses more clearly than they're looking at their possibilities. But here's the shocking part that nobody talks about. Recent neuroscience research reveals that our brains actually reward us for making excuses. Every time you create a compelling reason for why something can't be done, your brain releases a small hit of dopamine. You literally get addicted to your own limitations. Let me paint you a picture that might feel familiar. Maya sits at her desk during her lunch break, scrolling through social media. She sees someone who started the photography business she's been dreaming about for 3 years. Her stomach tightens with a mixture of envy and regret. But almost immediately, her well-trained mind begins its familiar routine. Well, she probably had family money to start with. I don't have that luxury. And she doesn't have kids like I do. Plus, she lives in a big city with more opportunities. I'm stuck in this small town where nobody appreciates art, and anyway, the market is probably saturated now. I'm too old to start something new. People would think I'm having a midlife crisis. Notice what just happened there. Maya's mind generated 7 different excuses in less than 30 seconds. Each one feels completely valid. Each one contains elements of truth. But together, they form an impenetrable wall between Maya and her dreams. This is what I call the excuse economy. It's a sophisticated internal system where we trade our potential for the temporary comfort of having reasons why we can't pursue it. Every excuse we accept is like making a deposit in an account that pays dividends in immediate relief but bankrupts our future. Now, before we go further, I want you to understand something crucial. I'm not here to shame you for having excuses. Your excuses exist for a reason. They serve a psychological function that's much deeper than simple procrastination or laziness. Your excuses are actually a sophisticated defense system designed to protect you from something your unconscious mind perceives as dangerous. The possibility of failure, rejection, or discovering that you're not who you think you are. As I've written in my books, you are not stuck where you are unless you decide to be. Your excuses are the decision to be stuck disguised as wisdom. But wait until you hear this next part. Your excuses aren't just protecting you from failure, they're protecting you from success. Because success would mean becoming someone different. And your ego is terrified of identity change. Think about this for a moment. When was the last time you had a dream that didn't come with a built-in set of obstacles? When was the last time you wanted something significant without immediately knowing all the reasons why it might not work out? This isn't coincidence. This is your psyche's way of managing the anxiety that comes with stepping into the unknown. What most people don't realize is that excuses aren't just explanations for why we can't do something. They're actually a form of identity management. Every excuse you make is a statement about who you believe you are and what you believe you're capable of. When you say, "I don't have enough money to start that business," you're not just talking about your bank account. You're reinforcing a story about yourself as someone who doesn't have resources, who can't figure out creative solutions, who needs perfect conditions to take action. I've spent my life teaching that you'll see it when you believe it, but most people have this backwards. They want to see the perfect conditions before they'll believe in their dreams. The truth is, you'll see the resources when you believe in your capability to find them. These stories feel true because they're based on real circumstances, but they're not the whole truth. They're selective truth. They're the parts of reality you've chosen to focus on while ignoring other equally real possibilities. Let me tell you about Chris, a man who attended one of my workshops several years ago. Chris was 45 years old and had been working in corporate finance for 20 years. He was successful by conventional standards, good salary, nice house, respected in his field. But Chris had a secret dream that he'd been carrying since college. He wanted to be a teacher. Every time the dream surfaced, Chris's excuse factory went into full production. "I can't afford to take such a massive pay cut. My kids are approaching college age. I'd have to go back to school myself to get certified. I'm too old to start over. What if I hate it? What if I'm not good at it? People would think I've lost my mind." For 3 years, Chris brought the same list of obstacles to our sessions. He had refined them, added new ones, found evidence to support them. He could give you a 20-minute presentation on why becoming a teacher was impossible for someone in his situation. He had become an expert in his own limitations. But here's where Chris's story takes an unexpected turn. One day, his teenage daughter was diagnosed with a learning disability. Suddenly, Chris found himself in countless meetings with teachers and specialists. He watched these educators work with his daughter, saw their passion, witnessed their impact, and something shifted. Now, you might expect me to tell you that Chris quit his job and became a teacher. But that's not what happened. Instead, Chris discovered something profound about the difference between excuses and obstacles. He realized that his excuses about money and time weren't actually stopping him from teaching. They were stopping him from exploring whether teaching was even what he truly wanted. When Chris honestly examined his dream, he discovered that what he really craved wasn't teaching in a classroom. It was making a difference in young people's lives. Once he got clear on the actual desire beneath the dream, possibilities opened up everywhere. Chris started volunteering as a financial literacy mentor for high school students. He developed workshops teaching kids about money management. He created an online course for teenagers about personal finance. Within 2 years, he had built a side business that fulfilled his desire to educate while keeping his family financially secure. The real breakthrough wasn't that Chris achieved his original dream. It was that he stopped letting his excuses prevent him from discovering what he actually wanted. As I always say, don't die with your music still in you. Chris realized his excuses were keeping his real music locked away. This brings us to something most people never consider. Sometimes our excuses aren't protecting us from pursuing our dreams. They're protecting us from discovering that our dreams aren't actually our dreams. They're protecting us from the scary work of figuring out what we really want. Think about that for a moment. What if your excuses aren't preventing you from getting what you want? What if they're preventing you from discovering what you want? I've taught for decades that when you judge another, you do not define them, you define yourself. Well, when you make excuses about your limitations, You're not describing reality. You're defining how you see yourself, and that self-defection becomes your reality. Your mind is like a spotlight. Whatever you consistently focus it on becomes illuminated and grows larger in your awareness. If you consistently focus on obstacles, you'll see nothing but obstacles. If you consistently focus on possibilities, you'll start noticing opportunities you never saw before. Let me share another story that illustrates something fascinating about how our relationship with excuses can completely transform. Nicole was a nurse who dreamed of becoming a writer. For 5 years, she had collected excuses. She didn't have an English degree. She had never published anything. She didn't know anyone in the publishing world. She worked long hours and was too tired to write. Good writers started young, and she was already in her 30s. But here's what's interesting about Nicole's story. She didn't overcome her excuses. She actually used them as fuel. Nicole realized that her lack of an English degree meant she brought a unique perspective to writing. Her medical background gave her insights that literature graduates didn't have. Her experience with long hospital shifts had taught her to use small pockets of time efficiently. Her age meant she had life experiences worth writing about. Instead of fighting her circumstances, Nicole embraced them. She started writing medical thrillers during her breaks. She used her hospital connections to fact-check her stories. She turned her limitations into her unique selling proposition. Within 18 months, Nicole had self-published 3 novels. But here's the twist that nobody saw coming. Her success as a writer opened up opportunities she never expected. A pharmaceutical company hired her to write training materials. A medical school brought her in to teach narrative medicine. Publishers started seeking her out specifically because of her medical background. Nicole discovered something revolutionary. Your supposed weaknesses can become your greatest strengths if you're willing to reframe your relationship with them. This reminds me of something I've always believed. There are no accidents in this universe. Nicole's medical background wasn't an obstacle to her writing dreams. It was the very thing that made her writing unique and valuable. What you think is holding you back might actually be pushing you forward. But wait, there's an even deeper lesson in Nicole's story. The excuses that felt like obstacles were actually roadmaps. They were showing her exactly what made her unique, what gave her an edge, what could become her competitive advantage. This is where most people get it backwards. They think they need to eliminate their limitations to pursue their dreams. But what if your limitations are actually pointing you toward your unique path? What if your excuses contain the very information you need to succeed? Every excuse you make reveals something important about your current mindset, your hidden fears, your unexamined assumptions. Instead of fighting your excuses, what if you got curious about them? Instead of trying to overcome them, what if you tried to understand what they're really protecting you from? You see, I've always taught that what you think about expands. If you're constantly thinking about why something can't be done, you're expanding the impossibility. If you start thinking about how it might be done, you're expanding the possibility. Your excuses aren't just delaying your dreams. They're training you to see yourself as someone who doesn't pursue dreams. Every time you choose your excuse over your aspiration, you're reinforcing neural pathways that make future excuse-making more automatic and dream pursuing more difficult. You're literally rewiring your brain to default to limitation rather than possibility. You're conditioning yourself to be a person who explains rather than explores, who analyzes rather than acts, who prepares rather than performs. But here's the beautiful thing about neuroplasticity. Your brain can be rewired. Your patterns can be changed. Your default settings can be updated. The same mechanism that has trained you to see obstacles can train you to see opportunities. Now, I want to share something that might surprise you. Research from Harvard Business School shows that people who successfully achieve major life changes don't eliminate their excuses. They develop what researchers call excuse immunity. They acknowledge their limitations while refusing to let those limitations define their possibilities. This isn't about positive thinking or pretending difficulties don't exist. This is about developing a different relationship with obstacles. It's about seeing them as information rather than verdicts, as challenges rather than stop signs, as data points rather than destinies. As I've often said, how people treat you is their karma, how you react is yours. Well, how life presents obstacles is life's karma. How you respond to those obstacles is yours. You always have a choice in your response. Here's a practice that can reveal something profound about your relationship with your dreams versus your excuses. Take any dream you've been postponing and divide a piece of paper into 2 columns. In the left column, list all the reasons why it's not possible right now. In the right column, list all the ways it might be possible. Most people can fill the left column in minutes and struggle to put anything in the right column. They've become experts in impossibility and amateurs in possibility. They've trained their minds to see obstacles more clearly than opportunities. But what if you reverse that training? What if you became as creative and detailed in exploring possibilities as you currently are in cataloging obstacles? What if you invested as much energy in solution finding as you currently invest in problem identifying? It starts with a simple but profound shift in the questions you ask yourself. Instead of asking, "Why can't I do this?" start asking, "How might I do this?" Instead of asking, "What could go wrong?" start asking, "What could go right?" Instead of asking, "What if I fail?" start asking, "What if I succeed?" This is what I mean when I teach that if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Change your questions, and you'll change your entire reality. These aren't just different questions. They're questions that point your mind in completely different directions. They activate different neural networks. They generate different possibilities. They create different futures. Your dreams are not naive fantasies that responsible adults abandon. Your dreams are invitations from your future self, calling you toward who you're meant to become. Your excuses are not realistic assessments that wise people accept. Your excuses are stories that keep you trapped in who you've always been. You've always believed that you have everything you need for complete peace and total happiness right now. That includes everything you need to pursue your dreams. Your excuses are just convincing you to look everywhere except where you already have what you need. But here's something that might shock you. Some of the most successful people I know didn't succeed despite their excuses. They succeeded because of them. They used their limitations as launching pads, their obstacles as stepping stones, their supposed weaknesses as sources of strength. The choice between your dreams and your excuses isn't a choice between optimism and realism. It's a choice between growth and stagnation, between possibility and limitation, between becoming. Every time you choose your excuse over your dream, You're choosing to stay safe over growing strong. You're choosing to be right about your limitations over being surprised by your capabilities. You're choosing the comfort of the known over the adventure of the unknown. But what if today was the day you chose differently? What if today was the day you decided that your dreams deserve as much attention as your excuses? What if today was the day you started investigating your limitations instead of just accepting them? Remember what I've taught. You cannot be lonely if you like the person you're alone with. Well, you cannot be stuck if you like the person you're becoming. Your dreams are calling you to become someone you'll love spending time with. I'm not asking you to abandon caution or ignore practical considerations. I'm asking you to balance those considerations with equal attention to possibilities. I'm asking you to become as skilled at finding ways as you currently are at finding obstacles. Your dreams aren't waiting for perfect circumstances. They're waiting for you to become the person who pursues them despite imperfect circumstances. Your dreams aren't waiting for your excuses to disappear. They are waiting for you to make them less important than your aspirations. And here's the final twist that changes everything. The people who achieve their biggest dreams aren't the ones with the fewest obstacles. They're the ones who refuse to let their obstacles become their identity. They're the ones who see their limitations as starting points, not stopping points. Your excuses will always be there, offering their familiar comfort, their reasonable explanations, their permission to stay exactly where you are. But your dreams are also there, whispering possibilities, calling you forward, inviting you to discover what you're truly capable of. The choice, as always, is yours. But remember this, at the end of your life, you won't be remembered for the excuses you perfected. You'll be remembered for the dreams you pursued. You won't be celebrated for the reasons you found to stay safe. You'll be celebrated for the courage you found to grow. Perhaps it's time to thank your excuses for their service and gently set them aside. Perhaps it's time to pick up your dreams, dust them off, and ask not why they can't happen, but how they might. Perhaps it's time to discover that the person you've been waiting to become has been waiting inside you all along, ready to emerge the moment you decide your dreams matter more than your defense. As I've said countless times, when you squeeze an orange juice comes out, because that's what's inside. When life squeezes you, what comes out? Excuses or dreams? The choice is always yours, and that choice reveals what's truly inside you. The world doesn't need another person who can eloquently explain why something can't be done. The world needs you to figure out how things can be done. The world needs you to choose possibility over protection, growth over safety, adventure over analysis. Your dreams chose you for a reason. They're not random fantasies. They're glimpses of your unrealized potential. They're previews of who you could become. They're invitations to step into a larger version of yourself. I want to leave you with this truth I've carried throughout my life's work. You'll see it when you believe it. Stop waiting to see perfect conditions before you believe in your dreams. Start believing in your dreams, and you'll see the conditions change around you. But they can only become reality if you're willing to make them more important than your excuses. They can only manifest if you're willing to transform your relationship with the very obstacles that have been stopping you. The question isn't whether you're capable of achieving your dreams. The question is whether you're ready to find out what happens when you stop being more committed to your limitations than to your possibility.